Okay. Okay, let me call the Veterans Meeting to order. It is now 10:03. Would you please stand? We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. Karen, would you please take roll? Present.
John Sieb, Sherry Hilsheim, Van Nelson, Patrick Metz.
Okay, with the attendance, Don is in the building, but he is going to be late. And Van, I've not heard anything from, so that's part of the record. We have number 4, approve this agenda and its posting. Karen, it's been posted, everything's good?
It has been posted properly.
Okay, so the agenda then is approved. Do we need to vote on that? I forgot. We do. Okay, may I have a proposal?
I approve it.
Okay, Patrick Metz makes the motion to approve the agenda,
I
and
second it.
Sherry Hilsheim seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's passed. Okay, we have to approve, review and approve the August meeting minutes. We got these in advance from Karen. I'm assuming everyone's had the chance to read it over. They looked fine to me, so I would move that we accept the minutes. May I have a second, please? Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, Sherry seconds. Thanks, Patrick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, anybody opposed? Okay, it's passed. So we've accepted the minutes from last meeting in August. Number 6, alternate meeting locations. I think this has to do with if the court needs this particular room in the future, that we look to find another place to meet. I think there's nothing more to it than just that. So we'll just leave that as a part of the record, and we're all set. Any other discussion on that?
Sir, do we actually need that to be pointed? Because we never know when we might get kicked out, I guess.
Yeah, it's as far as we know, we're scheduled for this room, consistently through the year.
Right.
However, on occasion, there's big trials that go on where they need this extra space for witnesses or whatever. And in that case, we don't know until it happens. So in that case, we'll work with Karen to get that taken care of. So Karen, you'll be in charge, as you know, and we'll just kind of find another location and meet if we need to. So having said that, number 7, public record documents as attachments, 2 minutes. I'm not certain what that's about.
Yep. I can speak to this. So recently the county has made it a policy that all attachments that will be viewed, handouts, will be posted on the internet and released for public prior no less than 24 hours before a meeting. So we were kind of the guinea pigs, even though it's not officially incorporated yet because we haven't received any guidance on it. The Veterans Office was used as kind of a guinea pig to set the standard for everyone else. So because we took the initiative to reach out to MIS, we worked with them so that the rest of the departments in the county they're going to know how to handle it and what to do. So that's why we went ahead and uploaded the packets. We were a good committee to start with because we have members that do not have iPads. And so that's why they really wanted to kind of start with us to see how it went. So that's why we got it out a month before everybody else, because we were kind of the test subject to see how this was going to work.
Okay, well, I suspect there should be no problem with this. It's just a formality, so we'll be the guinea pig, so thank you.
And I have to say, it works really well.
Yep.
Actually, compatible with.
And I greatly appreciate saving mountains of paperwork.
Yes, yes. So Patrick, you thought it was a good idea and everything works well?
Absolutely,
You've done that?
it's right here on my phone.
Yeah, mine too, so
Forever.
excellent. So we'll go ahead and do that, and I think we'll set a very good examples for the others.
Yep.
And just as part of the record, Don Seep just arrived. It's about 7 minutes after 10 when he came in. So Don isn't with us now, so now we have 4 members. You were excused. We saw you in the building and you had business to take care of. We're on number 8 now, Don. The suggestion box, Karen, did you want to speak to that?
That was, I looked into it. I reached out to the county administrator, and he and I together put together so that it's the exact same surveys that we do in the office. However, we added a note to the top of them saying that if someone wished, they could turn it in to the county administrator's office. So they don't have to turn it in the office. They can take it up to the 3rd floor and turn it in if they want to remain anonymous and how it reads. And so I included that in the packet as well, just a little optional note on the top of the survey.
Okay, so that's something you would have in the office given to those that come to visit the office?
Correct.
Okay, so hang on just a second. So now if I'm reading this right, they can either turn it in the office or they can turn it into Clint Langrick's office, and that's taken care of, correct?
Correct. And that's how it reads. The example is in the packet on the website.
Okay. Don, you wanted to speak? I think it's on now.
Am I on now?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. I recall that we discussed this, Patrick commented on it at a previous meeting, and he offered his help deciding that based upon his experience. Did you have conversation with Patrick about this?
I did. He gave his feedback as to some of the questions that should be asked and shouldn't be asked. And so, as you can see in the packet, that we did alter the questions from the original ones that we had.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Could the committee have until the next meeting to review the questions and offer their input in terms of the questions and the format at the next meeting?
I don't see where that would be a problem. Karen, what do you think? Is that a...
No, that's fine. Like I said, I already published it in the monthly packet, so
Okay.
you have examples of it.
Yes, I saw it there, and I appreciate that monthly packet.
Okay, if that's possible, would you, Karen, put that on our next month's agenda and then bring those in and we can discuss it?
Yes.
Okay, Sherry?
So just a point of clarification, it's not really a suggestion box, it's a suggestion system, I guess. Because we're not using a box to collect.
It's a survey. How was your service today? And then on the bottom, there's a big chunk that's left open blank for suggestions. How can we make your experience better?
Right, but my point is, since this is called a suggestion box, that's not correct. We don't have a box per se.
The county administrator's office would be where they can drop the suggestion.
But again, it's not a box.
It's a virtual box.
There we go. We'll say virtual.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's because that's what people recognize as a suggestion box. So whether it's a box or not, it's still a process for making suggestions.
We call it a repository?
Well, I think suggestion box, keep it simple and
A place to which you would put your comments. Sherry?
I guess other than taking the suggestion to the administrator's office, then we talked about a locked box, if we had a box.
Yeah.
But, so that it would be, the confidentiality would be there, but
Right.
then we've inserted that caveat.
Well, I guess at the top of it, it does say Veteran Services Office Box. So is it,
There is a box.
right?
It's just, it's not locked.
And I agree with Sherry, if it's confidential, it should probably protect it. But if it's anonymous, then it's the
Correct.
protection needed for it. So.
Yes, it is anonymous. Part of the reason that we leave it on there, the reason why we don't have a lockbox, and if you want me to change this, I would gladly take that suggestion. But the reason that we don't is so that they can be viewed immediately, because there is a portion on there that says, do you want someone to contact you about your visit? And so if it's in a lockbox that only gets checked once a month, those can't be, and I want immediate feedback. You know, I want, if there's something that needs to be addressed, we need to do that immediately.
I'm sorry, I didn't follow that. If, for what reason would you want to look at it?
Not necessarily me, just someone. If on the bottom, somebody has requested that somebody can contact them about their visit.
Yes, well, if the administrator receives it, that information should be on there.
Correct. That's why I prefer not to have it in a lockbox that only gets checked every so often. By handing it to the county administrator or in the office, it would be viewed immediately.
Well, I don't think there's any problem with security if the administrator is responsible for the lockbox at his office. I would presume that for the convenience of the veterans, you would probably want to have the lockbox perhaps out in the hall for the veterans. Wouldn't that be somewhat more convenient? And secondly, in terms of confidentiality, I think it's very important that there be an opportunity for the veterans to fill that out outside of the office. Otherwise, if they're being observed filling it out there is the possibility that they might feel their confidentiality is compromised. So I think it's very important that there be absolute anonymity in terms of providing this opportunity for clients to fill out a survey. And I think I don't want to discuss this further now because I think the committee should have an opportunity to look at this and in their own minds between now and the next meeting,
Yeah.
create any other input that
And,
they
sir,
may have.
I have
Never say you're sorry.
Sherry?
I have two questions. One is, are 100% of you getting one of these suggestion forms?
Not until this committee has made a recommendation. So I have not, as of yet, began handing out the new ones.
Well, and the other thing that we spoke of was that maybe there are other, because you interface with clients, with people in the courthouse. And so if there's a way that the feedback could be gotten from them as well, right? I think that was the point of having a box true box that could be accessed and locked but I'm not sure what the process would be for you to get the feed.
Hey, Karen?
If you're interested in the county having a box for all offices that can leave feedback, that would probably have to go to the property committee.
No, I don't think, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't think that was Sherry's suggestion. I think she was suggesting that not only veterans, but anyone in the general public would have an opportunity to make a suggestion regarding the Veterans Service Office. Was that your suggestion?
Yes, sir.
that's a good idea.
Did you have something to say? Would you please come to the mic, state your name and then your comment?
My name is Samantha Kern. I'm curious what difference anybody's random opinion on the Veteran Service Office would make to the Veteran Service Commission, that you could have people just walk in and write comments about how they think the office should be run. And who do you think should be reviewing these surveys? Simply the county administrator and that's all? It seems like that is out of the bounds of his responsibility, unless this is something that is going to be implemented for every commission, every board, that it seems like it's singling out this commission unduly.
Mr. Chairman, it's
Mr. C.
matter of the committees has the right to establish its own rules so long as they are, excuse me,
Oh, you speak to the chairman.
please.
Speak to the chairman.
The committee has the right to establish rules for the conduct of the committee so long as they are consistent with the statutes and the county ordinance and in consultation with the administrator. So the purpose of these surveys is to provide an opportunity to look for ways to improve the service of the Veterans Office. This is not a matter of looking for people to necessarily establish a continuum of complaints, but rather to make suggestions that would improve the Veteran Service Office. And I would think that the Veterans administrator of the county would have the good judgment to evaluate those comments that are made. Perhaps some are not at all constructive, but
My question is then, how does somebody who does not visit the office, who is not a veteran, who is not a member of the commission, who doesn't partake of the office's services, how does their opinion on how the office should be run, how does that, in your opinion, Sherry, make a difference to whether or not they should be completing surveys on how they think the office should be run? If I come in, I'm not a veteran. If I come into the office, I can just submit surveys for how I think you guys should be doing your jobs and how Karen should be doing her job. Like, what do you think the benefit to letting anyone, not just a client of the services office, be to
let me
submitting
give you
a
an
survey?
example.
Okay, let me,
Sherry, to explain.
I'm the chairman. I
I'm sorry.
will deal with this. We have suggested this come up at the next meeting. So far as I know, nobody other than a veteran has been in there to submit any kind of form. They're not given one. It's only those that are coming in for service that receive the form. So what you're suggesting is kind of outside of the range of what we're dealing with.
Well, it's
Karen,
because she brought it up.
I'm speaking.
I'm
Thank you.
asking for clarification.
Okay, Karen and Clint and myself should get together between now and our next meeting to kind of determine where this thing goes, because it's kind of nebulous right now. It's kind of floating around. We've had a system of doing it which was questionable, and we want to make sure that we are on task. So between Karen and myself and Clint, we will determine this and bring this to next month's meeting and maybe have a full discussion of it at that time, along with what had been done, what Karen is proposing be done, what Clint has to say, and Clint being the county administrator is the one that would probably make the final decision. So I think this is kind of out of our hands right now, and rather than prolong this discussion where no remedy would be found at this time, we will bring this up at the next meeting. Sherry?
I just have a real quick comment. How this office interfaces with the rest of the courthouse, or, you know, I think it's a good thing for us to learn if there are challenges with that interface. So that's why, to broaden it to not only the veterans, but to other people that this office comes into contact with and supports or whatever,
Yes.
then we're getting a much broader feedback system.
Mr. Chair.
So
Yes.
anyway,
Patrick?
So I think this is getting a little too
Weeds.
perspective here, because, I mean, if you read the survey, it's very clear is how was your visit today? How did you find the appearance of the office, and how helpful was the staff? It's very clear who its purpose is for. It's for the person that was just in there receiving services. It's not about a general kind of, hey, how are we doing in general? It's about, how was your visit? You know, and I don't want to get away from that. I think everyone that comes in for service should receive this, should have the opportunity to provide comment. And a survey is not a negative thing. It's about collecting information about how you do your work and how it's impacting the people you're serving. And so I don't see that it should go beyond that. And whether or not Clint or Karen or whomever reads it, you're just collecting data about what your clients have to say, right? And so, to your point though, Sherry, if they want to have, I think, input about how the Veteran Service Office interacts with everyone else in the courthouse or in the county, they can come to this meeting and provide public comment. And that's more appropriate, because if you got something to say and you really feel strongly about it, then come on down. There's public comment on every agenda, and speak before this board and put yourself out there. If you don't want to do it in person, or you want to be anonymous, well, whatever you got to say is really not worth much, because if you're not willing to come up and say it, then you know it kind of makes it hard for a board to address that, because an anonymous comment's an anonymous comment. You know, it's so what's the purpose? You know, what happened? I don't know, someone's got a beef with them or whatever. I don't want that to get into that kind of thing. I think if you got something to say, you come here and say it. You have people in the audience here today. That's why they're here. If they don't see something that they don't like, or they've had an interaction or hear of interactions, here's where you need to bring it. So I don't want to get this suggestion box into a different realm, you know, beyond what its real intent, I think, is. And I'd like to just not beat this to death.
Yeah.
Because it's a very good, quick snippet of, I think, what it needs to be for the clients that we serve. And it gives them a voice. Now, it needs to be as anonymous as possible. It's hard because you got one room that you sit in. You see everybody, you do everything in one room. And to have a box in that room, that kind of negates the anonymous part of it. So having it up in the administrator's office or somewhere, and again, you know, administrator's office, you're going from the second to the third floor. You've now put an undue burden upon somebody to go up one floor. Some people don't like the elevator because they get stuck, obviously. Some people don't like the stairs because they probably have a disability or just don't like to go upstairs. So there needs to be some way for them to not be burdened by this process. So we need to figure that out, I think, is the only thing we need to really look at, because as I see it, it's a suggestion box. How did we do today on your visit? Don't go beyond that. Anything else? Come here.
Thank you, Patrick. Ms. Kern, Mrs. Kern, to answer your question maybe a little bit further, it may be appropriate when we speak to Clint to find out whether or not other offices are doing the same thing. Maybe that's something that they ought to consider doing in a universal sense, that not only Karen, and, but, other officers and the other offices may need to have some such of a thing, and maybe they do, maybe they don't. But we will make that a point, Karen, when we see Clint, to see, how universal this thing is. Is this just in your office? And what's the history of it? And we can kind of go from there. So, did you have a question, Marge? Would you speak into a mic, please? We're being recorded, so,
I
So-
concur with Patrick Metz.
okay. So that's Marge Freeman. By the way, congratulations on getting in the paper this past week. Yay. Yep, it was good. Also, the flowers out front were fantastic. Thank you. So we're doing good as a military veteran community, and this is excellent. So let's just kind of postpone this whole thing until next time. Karen and I, you and I can get together within the next month along with Clint, and we'll kind of try and get this all settled. Maybe kind of expand beyond that to see who else is involved and what we might suggest. So Karen's job is not on the line here. It's never been on the line. What we're doing is talking about office procedure and what's going on, and how can we improve? No matter what you do, we can always improve, and I think that's what this entire thing is about. So, Karen?
Just because I want the committee to know what we're going to discuss with Clint. I started these surveys on my own. No other offices use them. I did it because I wanted the feedback. And there was a period of time when I didn't with the committee because I don't need to. I can just keep them in my office internally. The whole Clint being kind and letting us turn surveys into him for anyone that wishes to is a huge favor he's doing for our office that is above his job title. I mean, technically he doesn't need to do that, but these surveys did come from me. I don't know a single other office that uses them. Other county offices feel that they should be using something like this, then that would be something that would need to be taken to the property committee. But that's a little bit of the history,
Yeah.
and we'll shut it down now, but thank you for listening.
Very fine. Thank you, Karen. So we'll put that to rest until next month, and we'll kind of move forward with this at that time and just see where it is that we want to go with this. So thank you. We're on number 12 then, budget report.
Number 9.
I'm sorry. Oh, we were on suggestion. I was down. I'm sorry. So that was number 8. Number 9, thank you. Veterans ETK software update. Yes, I talked to Barb and she wasn't aware of anything, so please tell us.
Yes, September 20th, the bills will get paid. That's the only thing that they're waiting for, is that audit is on September 20th. And so it should be in the mail and they should have it by the end of next week. And then it'll be official. But as of right now, they're just waiting on Richland Center to write the check. So
Okay.
Everything's good. It should
Yeah.
be another week.
And that I'm assuming would be approved at our next general session meeting for the county commission. So, well, thank you. And then we'll have a report on that next time.
Correct.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. And so that was number 9. So 10, monthly visitors log. I was confusing that with the other one. So please go with that.
It's provided in the packets that you guys have had a chance to review. I haven't noticed any oddities, or there's no way to really track this data. So I just provide it to you for your viewing.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on that or suggestions?
Karen, I didn't quite understand. There's no way to track data. What do you mean by that?
As far as trends, some Mondays are really busy, and other weeks Mondays are not busy, and Fridays are really busy. As far as like the trending, the
Sure.
trending is what I was meant to say. It's very seasonal. Of anything, I would say it's seasonal. People are cutting wood right now and they're trying to get ready for winter and, you know, trying to finish out strong on the summer. And then the seasonal workers that, you know, stay busy cutting hay in the summer and fall, we'll see them in the winter, and tax season is always pretty busy, the property taxes and such. So it's not really a weekly, day-to-day basis that we see more trends. It's the seasonal.
It's just helpful to know the numbers of people that are either calling or coming to your office for assistance. That
Well-
gives the committee a
One of the things we spoke of, you and I spoke about this earlier, with the fair going on this past weekend and everything, and you had a booth there at the fair, and you spoke of that. Would you talk a little bit about that, please?
We met with a lot of veterans. We handed out business cards, we handed out brochures, books. We started a list for people that wanted us to contact. They wanted us to contact them with more literature. We were asked for donations. We were told about new events coming out. We were invited to some of those events. It was truly a great thing. We found veterans that have never been in our office or haven't been in for like 10 plus years. And we really made a lot of good connections.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions or comments from any of the committee on that? I think that's pretty straightforward, and that's an excellent thing. And I think the more we get the fact that Karen and the office are here available to any of the veterans, especially now that the Afghanistan war is over, my fear was that there would be a number of people after the 20 years of fighting over there might have some problems because of that, because of the way it ended. So I guess not too much has happened yet with this. That might be something that's going to take time, but Karen?
The Madison VA did take a wonderful initiative. Just as a little bit of a Afghan update. They took a wonderful initiative, and everyone within our entire county, all the veterans that are that time, this era, they called them to check on their mental health. Every single one.
Good.
So everyone that is Afghanistan, that had any affiliation with Iraq or Afghanistan, they actually called them on the phone to check on their mental health. I have had numerous reports, and they just thought that was just the greatest thing that Madison did that for them.
Fantastic.
Were those calls from the VA hospital or?
Correct.
Good.
So that all sounds wonderful. I'm glad that veterans will be taken care of. So that was 10. We're now moving to number 11, VA forms log. So
There was a slight dip this month in the number that we would normally fill out. And I just, like I said, I think it's wood chopping season. I know my husband's chopping wood today, and I think it's just people kind of trying to get summer things wrapped up for this past month. Plus, there's fairs and all kinds of shows and rodeos, and so I think again it's just a seasonal thing that we had a little dip. I think it was 10 less than prior. So
yeah, well, it's every season has thing, and we're truly getting into fall at this point.
yes.
The leaves are just falling like snow. And my neighbor told me a great big oak tree fell across one of my woods trails, and I've got to get that out. And so, anyways, yeah, this is the season. So I totally agree with that. It may be that when things settle down, we'll have more veterans coming in to visit. So when things settle down, then that'll be good.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry. Don, did you have a
yes,
question?
just a comment.
Sure.
This form, both of these reports have been, I think, very helpful and have evolved in a nice way. I would like to suggest, Karen, I think it would be just helpful in terms of information that the title, which says forms, would be more relevant, I think, to not just the committee, but to the public in general, to add the word to change it to forms filed, rather than forms. The forms is, stands alone as kind of an elusive, situation, but if you say forms filed in behalf of veterans or service, I think, that would be more helpful. Would you have any problem with changing that title to forms filed?
I'll make sure it's done before next month.
Well, is the committee,
Is there any other suggestions as to how to rename this so that it's more understandable? Do you think file would be appropriate?
well, that's what she's doing. She's filing those forms.
True. Sherry?
That seems like it speaks to it a bit better.
Okay, so let's, by consensus, say that we'll just change it to file if that's okay. All right.
Yep.
Thank you. So that was the budget report then, right? Oh, no, we just finished forms. Okay, so going past that to number 12, budget report.
We haven't had any expenditures, unexpected expenditures, just the monthly. We did finally get an order of our flag holders in, and I've placed a second order, but it hasn't come out of the budget. So pretty much the way it stands now is how it'll finish.
Okay. And one of the things that Karen and I spoke of not too long ago was the fact that we've got two different flag holders in cemeteries around the area. And I know Van was interested in getting a different flag with diameter because they didn't, the new ones didn't fit into the old ones. So I was wishing he'd be here because then he could hear that we've got both. So we've got supplies for both of them. So no matter which one the graveyards have, the cemeteries have, we've got the appropriate flags to put in them. So Karen, did you have something else?
No, that was it.
Okay, so that problem that came up a couple meetings ago is now taken care of. Yes, please come up to the mic, state your name and your cause.
Sandra Kramer. The question I have is if someone needs aid out of the Veterans Aid, how do they go about doing that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry. If a veteran needs aid, like whether they need help with electric
Karen,
or
I'm sorry, Sandy, would you take your mask off?
if a veteran needs aid, how do they go about, where do they start? And is there any paperwork that needs to fill out? And who approves that in the end? Like if they need help with electric bill or a car payment, or if they need a voucher for groceries, where do they start? Do they come to the veterans office or do they come to you? Do you have a policy in place?
Okay, Don, did you understand that?
Yes, I did. Is Clint on the line?
I don't think so. I think he's at the airport meeting right now.
I think he is.
I'm online.
Oh, Clint, hi, welcome. So do you have an answer for that?
This is a question for me.
No, not necessarily. I wondered if you would want to comment on it. The aid to, my understanding, the Veterans Commission is responsible for making decisions regarding the money that the county levies in the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund, specifically for aid to veterans, so that if a veteran would come into the office and ask for help with rental assistance or some other financial need, paying an electric bill, as you say, and that veteran there's an investigation. Karen has been working on a policy that is based on information that she got from other counties regarding their policies and procedures for the work of rendering assistance to needy veterans. Now, that policy has not been brought before this committee, but the statutes clearly lay out the role of the Veterans Commission. Now, we're acting here today as a committee. We have not met as a commission for this specific question of aid because apparently there have been no request for financial aid in the years that I've been on the committee here, at least. Now, prior to that, I know that there were. So the Veteran Service Officer in the role of the Veterans Service Commission regarding aid to needy veterans as the executive secretary, not the secretary, but the executive secretary of that function. And it is his or her responsibility to investigate within the parameters of the statutes the request and provide an application which asks questions, gathers information within the parameters of the statutes without violating certain protected information. That information is confidential and basically is for the Veteran Service Officer's eyes only. It would be extremely rare for the Veteran Service Officer to reveal the name of the person, and it would not be necessary so long as all of the information meets the criteria for rendering assistance is provided. All the commissioners need to know is that information. If they're satisfied, they can approve the financial award. Now, in addition to that, the Veterans Service Officer can often refer a client to other resources which the county provides. Human Services, for example, provides a lot of services to our veterans, including sometimes financial aid, rental assistance, fuel assistance. So the Veteran Service Officer has a variety of resources, but if the request is for financial aid, and that is the only resource, then the Veteran Service Officer investigates this, meets with the committee, provides them with the required information so that they can make a decision, a confidential decision, and then the award, perhaps it's $250 for an electric bill. By policy, the voucher would be forwarded to the clerk, and a check would be sent to the electric company, not the client. So that in general is the procedure that it's not only is this a traditional procedure, but it is the procedure that is being formulated in a policy. Karen has those policies information that she has recently gathered from other counties, and I presume that that will be presented to the committee for approval. Now, the whole question of acting as a commission has not clearly been defined by the county board, but the commission is a separate body from this oversight committee. Uh, uh, we have to work out how that's going to be done, whether 3 members of this committee who are veterans would be designated to a separate committee called the Veterans Commission, form that function. That may be a way to do it. Committee as a whole here is not privy to the information or the business of the Veterans Commission, because their business is specifically related to this very confidential work. So thank you very much. That's probably too long, but I hope it's helpful.
Hey, Clint, before you respond, we seem to have 2 different things going on here. Karen had something to say, and then Clint, I would invite you to speak. Thank you. So Karen?
I was just curious, are we skipping 13 completely and going to public input, or do you want to go to public input and then come back to 13 since she's speaking?
Well, we've gone to public input at random here for some reason.
We were just on the budget report, and Don brought up a couple different things here. So did you have anything more to say on?
No, I was just curious for the minutes
Okay.
if we're in the public input right now, because that's what's
Well,
going on.
As far as I know, we're still on number 12, the budget report, but we kind of
Jumped,
hop,
yeah.
skipped, and jumped to several
Well,
things.
I do think it's pertinent, and because the issue is the budget, there's $3,000 in the aid line. None of it's been expended. We're into September now. So I think that was the question that was brought up is, what is the process? Because if nothing's been spent, is there a problem with the process or whatever, as I understand it. So it is pertinent to the conversation of item number.
So if we get back to what Sandy brought up initially, if you could respond to that, please. And then Clint, we'll get to you because we got a couple other things going on here.
Don did a very good job of explaining it.
Okay. Yeah, so there are definitely means by which Karen can get this done, as well as through the Health and Human Services. I mean, they have similar things going on there. Clint, another problem that was just brought up is the fact that we are meeting as a committee here, and a commission needs to be separately set up to deal with things of the state. And we're kind of acting as both, so we need to kind of clarify what it is that we're doing. I think that's part of what Don was speaking of. So, Clint, did you want to say anything before we move on?
In regards to the structure, I would say if that's something that you would like to address, I would recommend then you, for a future agenda item to discuss and have on there as a commission structure, and to then make a recommendation that would go off to a Rules and Resolutions Committee on how you would like to see it change. It would be a good opportunity to do that right now in anticipation of the new session. There's been discussions on reevaluating our committee structure document, which kind of has the framework for what our committees are composed of by memberships, and then what the duty and responsibilities of those committees are. So that's how I recommend to address that. In regards to the commission grant program that's in place, I guess I'm lost at where the question was in. If you could reiterate exactly what the question is for me.
It's kind of lost in the weeds myself.
The question, I think I can answer that.
Keep it short though, please, Don.
The question really was, how are veterans getting aid from the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund, specifically the Aid to Needy Veterans grant from the county levied to the Veterans Service Office for this, and I tried to explain in general, with perhaps some error, how that process is supposed to work, based upon my understanding from my experience here, as well as having read the statutes and discussed it with other people who supposedly know about this.
Okay. Sandy, was your question answered? I think Don sort of answered it. Karen, we've got too many things going on at once.
But if
Karen-
if I could interject one, I think more
Yes.
so I don't know if there's a question more so of to iterate on the visual that if we haven't expended anything out of it, then obviously the process hasn't been exercised. So if the real point and premise is to try to reevaluate on what that process looks like, again, I guess I would recommend that we agenda that at a future agenda item to say report on current process, and we can request then too from Karen to a report on what the process looks like, how folks access it, and then what type of other measures potentially are in place to help advertise and promote it. Sometimes I know from previous experiences that does become an overlapping on some additional services that potentially are offered with Health and Human Services, not always, but really type from a budgetary perspective of which we're agended today. I think the discussion would be on if there was, why it hasn't moved, maybe as a budgetary question, and if there's a reason that we want to see more funding for it for future budgets, there's still an opportunity with that from finance and personnel. If there's an overall question or report and information wanted specific to the processes on it, then I think I'd recommend then we agenda that for a future agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Clint. So Karen's been taking notes seriously. If you would put that on our agenda for the next time, as well as the commission versus committee idea, and that way we'll satisfy what Clint was speaking of. Clint, was there anything else that should be on there next meeting?
What arrives on there would be a petition from yourself at the end of the committee. I guess that's my recommendations in regards to try to tease out those questions and concerns brought up in the last conversation, Mr. Chair.
Excellent, thank you. And would you please be with us either here in person or online, either way, as long as you're here to kind of help guide us and be a part of the conversation?
I will do my best, time permitting, Mr. Chair.
I totally appreciate that. Thank you. And Sandy, please continue with what your question was.
Well, the reason I ask is because I know of a veteran right now that could use money now, not wait until next month.
That process, I believe, is available through Karen. So, is it correct? Is that Karen? Would you address that, please?
To contact my office.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, if you'd advise and maybe direct them toward Karen, she's been very helpful to me too in getting it going with the veterans. Marge, would you speak to the mic, please? Push it up toward the.
In reference to the veteran, I'm well aware of that situation. I will contact that veteran today.
Excellent, thank you. And if you hear of anybody else that is in need of help, please direct them to Karen. Peter Kern is also there, so one or the other should be in the office. And they've been very helpful to those most recently that have needed help. So this is a good thing. So thank you. We need to work together for our fellow veterans. So with that, is there anything more, Karen, on that subject? I think we're okay. Is that all the further we are?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So then number 13, review the proposed 2022 budget. This was done by Karen as a part of her responsibility that went directly to Clint. And it does not have to go through this committee at all. However, there were some questions about it. And so I'll open it up to brief comments, discussions, questions, whatever needs to happen. So anybody? Don?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's a slight variation on your statement. It is the committee's responsibility to review the budget and provide input, acceptance, and changes to the budget. I think that Clint has made that clear to us that the budget should come to the committee for changes and for review and possible suggestions for changes. And I would ask Clint to clarify my statement regarding that. I want to make sure that I'm accurate.
Clint, would you please speak to that?
In a second, I can pull up my guidance that was solicited out. Probably take me about a better part of a minute if you want to continue
That's okay.
conversation. I can get back to you.
While you're doing that, Clint came up as the county administrator a year and a half ago. And prior to that, this committee had that purview. However, now with the administrator on duty, I'm not sure exactly where we do stand, and that's what Clint is going to find out right now. I definitely think that we should review it, but whether or not we're the ones that would be the ones to make a final decision, I'm not certain that's still the case. So
Mr.
Clint is
Chairman.
going to have to guide us on that one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm on the Personnel Finance Committee,
Yes, Don.
and across the board in the county, all of the committees reviewed their budget before it was presented to the Finance Committee. I believe that Mr. Langrick can confirm that as well.
Understood. If that be the case, then maybe from this time forward, that as the other committees do, we'll do that here next year when we have to.
We, as an
Resubmit.
oversight committee, we certainly have some fiduciary responsibility here.
Yes, thank you. Karen?
That was actually discussed at the last meeting, and we talked about that will be done from this point on. So
Okay.
this is just kind of a reiteration, I think, is what Donna's saying.
Okay.
What happened was we didn't have a meeting. July.
Correct.
The July meeting was canceled, and so by the time the Finance Committee had all of the department heads come forward, it was too late for this committee to have an opportunity to have input into the formation of the budget.
That's that was the time that we were dismissed from this room because the courts needed it, and with that we thought there wasn't that much to cover, so we just kind of canceled the meeting, not thinking ahead that this was, the budget was coming up that we needed to discuss. So we'll try and avoid that in the future by doing what we had talked about before with, finding other locations if we have to have a meeting. So we will not run into this problem again, hopefully in the future. Karen?
That's it.
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
Clint? Yes.
So our guidance language that came out is approved through Finance and Personnel included with the preliminary budget on an estimated date to begin July 7th, 2021. Administrator's Office distributes copies of the budget timeline, packet documents, and budgeting guidance to all departments and county-funded organizations. Departments may begin presenting to supervisory committees. Supervisory committees may take action to recommend budget to Finance and Personnel with budget guidance. So that was what was released out to the extent that all departments or organizations proposed to a supervisory committee prior to it arriving to my office and before Finance and Personnel. I would say that it would not be all. I would say that there were many, but I would not say that all did a presentation to a supervisory committee prior to it coming to myself or Finance and Personnel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you for your input. As you received our budget for the Veterans Commission and the Veterans Office, did you find that satisfactory?
Oh, is that a question for myself, Mr. Chair?
Yes, it was.
Yes, I was satisfied with the budget came in. It came in with the guidance that was distributed out. And again, if there is action that this committee would like to take, Finance and Personnel would meet tomorrow. So you could make a proposal for a change or a recommendation or such to that committee body, which again is meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Okay. Is there any, it's been turned in, I had a chance to look it over and I found it to be good. Anybody else have any comments on it?
Yes, I would like to discuss a few points in the 2022 budget, if I
Okay,
may.
certainly.
I think this is probably just an oversight, but the legislature approved an increase in the veteran service grant by $750 from $8,500 to $9,350. That is not reflected in the 2022 budget. So let's put that down as one correction that needs to be made.
Okay, before we move forward, Karen, are you aware of that?
Said that there wasn't room for it in the budget and they were gonna revisit it next year. It was the last information that my CVSO association put out.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't hear that comment, Karen.
When it was introduced, they said that there was no room for it in the budget and that they were gonna revisit it again next year. That's what the state CVSO association has put out for guidance.
Well, the governor signed the budget. The legislature approved it. So the counties were made aware of it at least a month ago, more than a month ago. So we need to correct it. That is additional money that is being awarded to the county in the Veterans Service Grant.
So Karen, is there a way to check in on that to make sure that that's reflected in our budget if it's appropriate?
Roger.
Thank you. So Don, I think that we'll take care of that.
That's I have other.
Well, that's okay. We'll deal with one at a time. And so thank you for bringing that up and we'll see if we're eligible, we should get it. Yes. So
I believe that most of the budget items, whether they're are rather reasonable. The one that stands out to me, of course, is the issue of the aid to needy veterans. There's $3,000 in it that hasn't been spent, and I am interested in that for two reasons. One is, and this is not reflected in the budget, but there is a donations account in the general fund. I believe it's Fund 84. Flex Fund 84. And that has a balance of $2,400. There has been no activity in that account this year. There has been some activity in it since 2014. It is. It also includes donated funds from the estate of Teddy Rue, and those funds were designated to the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund. So there's an additional $2,400 available to the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund. I recommend that their $3,000 either be moved or replaced with perhaps the $2,400 from the donated funds, except for the $122.50, which was donated by a disabled veterans group, which is specified to be used for families with children. So I would recommend that the additional $750 either be applied towards salaries as the other 8,500 is by the finance office, so that you could either apply $9,350 towards salaries. That would be a suggestion that I would make to the finance committee tomorrow, that they make adjustments regarding those two areas. Third, there is zero money in the budget of 2022 for legal expenses. The compensation for legal advice is $125 an hour.
Before we go on, is this another point that you want to make beyond the one we just did?
Yeah.
Okay, let's deal with the last one while we're still on it. Karen, you had some ideas?
Briefly spoke with the county administrator about this and where those funds could be transferred to. He did have some suggestions that he was going to take forth to the Finance and Personnel Committee for the budget. So he would probably be able to speak to those now.
Okay, Clint, did you hear that? Would you be able to respond?
Yes, in regards to the Teddy Roof Fund, there's a collection of funds that we have in our system that have not showed activity for quite a while. Part of it is not knowing how to trace back to resolutions or whatever types of statutes policy that establish that and what the purposes are. We're hoping that some of those problems may be solved if we get into ability to codify and digitize our many records that date back to the beginning of the county that are all in paper form file. The other part of it too is to review them in its entirety next year and then decide through a type of policy resolution on where those funds are best distributed and close out some of our many different funds that we have out there that are existing and have been inactive. So it's on our radar of things to do, but to do it in conjunction with several other identified funds that fit the same type of profile.
Thank you. Is it possible, now that much of this is in the murky history of this county, that we can kind of revisit this whole thing and just kind of start the record up fresh at this point? We've got the money available. Let's put it where it's needed, and that way we don't have to worry about, what's in the past and trying to dig up something that somebody said 100 years ago or whatever. We need to kind of move forward. We can't be bogged down with history. We need to look forward. So with that, I think some of the money that has been talked about is what both Marge and Sandy spoke of with this veteran that's in need. Those monies, I think, could probably be applied there and well used. So these are, we need to kind of deal with what's going on. So, Clint, if you want to continue with that, that's fine. We can maybe discuss that later. Is there any other comment on that particular subject? Okay, Don, you had a third point.
Yes, well, I did. I said that the account for legal expenses is at zero. I think that's not prudent. I think that, I think the year before last, it was $1,000, or prior to that, it was a deficiency of $19,000 because of an unforeseen circumstance of litigation. So I would say that it's fair to possibly put the $750, which is now in excess of revenue requirements, and put it into the expense column for legal expenses. Maybe spend it, may not, but it's safe to have it there.
Is that something that's within our jurisdiction?
Well, that's up to the finance committee to make those changes.
I see. Clint, what is your opinion on that?
In conversation with Karen on she'd asked me about legal services types. We've got our legal services right now is budgeted through two different accounts mostly. We have it underneath our Fund 10 with payment that goes out to our corporation counsel, and then part of, I believe, Health and Human Services and child supports can touch on those depending on the work that he does for us or his firm does for us. The other part is if we reach out, as we did historically with a different attorney, and I believe that was with Attorney Anderson regarding um, uh, personnel type, employment law types of issues. I I don't know. You can add it if you want to underneath your item line if there was a anticipated expense that you knew was there. But for the other departments that operate out of the courthouse, that are operating essentially out of general fund, we kind of absorb those costs out of the corporation counsel salary account line through general fund for the more routine things of reviewing contracts and reviewing resolutions or ordinance changes or those types of actions. So if it's something that you feel is that you need to put there in a budget, again, that could be a recommendation that you make as a body to go on to finance and personnel tomorrow.
The way things are set up at this point, Clint, do you think that's something that's necessary?
I don't foresee that there's an expense there out of the routine.
In any case, Mr. Chairman, the $750, which is not reflected in the budget, which is in the grant in excess of what is reflected in the budget, needs to be accounted for, and I would ask that the Finance Personnel Committee take that into consideration. Maybe they'll place it towards salaries along with the other $8,500. I think that's the way the finance people are applying the $8,500 at present, because state has loosened the restrictions in the allocation of that $8,500. So I think Clint would agree that we have to take into account the additional $750, which is not on the document.
Okay, Clint, if we were to designate that, as Don had suggested, to kind of find a place for it, do you agree with him that this is what we should do?
And again, the additional, that's $750 is what Don is accounting for additional grant revenues provided through Wisconsin Department of Veteran Affairs. Is that $750 we're talking about?
Yes, the grant, the budget document shows the grant at $8,500. The grant is actually, for 2022, the grant is actually $750 more, $9,350. So that needs to be accounted for in the budget.
Yes, if you want to take an action then to increase the revenue line to reflect $750, which again, I'm hoping we can shore up with showing that it is an increase, then we can do that for the $750. The other option would be to ensure that it materializes, and then we'd have $750 overage in a revenue account. But if we knew about it and it was guaranteed and hard locked in and we could raise it to that, then yes, that would increase the revenue on that line.
Last month's Wisconsin County's report, their magazine, published an article in which they discuss the legislature's action and the governor's signature over that increase for every CVSO office, every county's CVSO office in the state of Wisconsin, based upon population. We're only getting 750 because we have a population less than 20,000. But my source document is the Wisconsin County's publication last month, Mr. Blagrick.
So, Clint, is this something we need to take action on here? Is that something that can be taken care of by the committee?
Yeah, if you'd like to take
Finance.
action, if the action language would be then to recommend to finance and personnel to increase the revenue line $750 reflecting the increase in the Wisconsin Veterans Grant.
I make, that is my intent, and I offer that motion as stated by Mr. Langrick.
Okay, so Don has made a motion as to how to deal with that $750. May I have a second? I guess I'll second that. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any discussion? Okay, so then that's seven.
I guess I do have, so are we, so has the county received documentation? I know you read it in a magazine, but is there an actual contract with that amount in it? Because I'd hate to be putting it in there if we don't have a confirmation in the actual contract. Do we have a revenue contract that states it's now 9250 or 9350?
Karen?
It has not been passed, but I can use that 750.
I understand that, but you know, it's kind of,
Either way.
to me, it's kind of pointless to put it in there if we don't actually know for a fact. We don't have a revenue contract in place, then it hasn't happened, and it's not real.
Right.
She's applied for the grant.
Well, I understand that, and you can apply for everything you want, but until you actually get on paper that you have received it or will receive it, and it's an official document, and it's kind of a moot point.
I suppose we could say if in the event.
I would say that would be my recommendation of an addition to the motion.
Withdraw my motion, and I say if in the event the county receives a Veteran Service Office grant in the amount of $9,350, that it be accounted for in the budget. By the time I get to the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting, I'll see if there's solid evidence that we're going to get it.
Karen?
I've had Pete working on it in the office while we've been talking about it, and there's nothing from the CVSO Association. Also, I wanted to clarify that the application process for the grant hasn't begun yet. October 1, the transportation grant will come out. That doesn't apply to us, but our CVSO grant will come out probably in December. And
Okay.
I just want to clarify.
So
We're talking about 2022.
So,
Yep, that's right.
so we're all still within bounds. We're okay with this. Okay, so voted?
Well,
Yes.
Yes, we did.
So anyways, if you'll just write that down when it comes due. Now will this affect your finance committee meeting tomorrow? That's a proposal.
I need a consensus from this committee that I'm authorized to discuss this issue and ask for some resolution regarding this issue at the Personnel and Finance Committee. I wouldn't want to do it on my own. I'd like to have this committee's support.
Right. Okay, so Don, to give you that, I would say that you could, it's informational at this point only, because there's nothing's been passed at this point. So $8,500 is it. That's in the budget. That is a solid budget because that's what you know at this point. You know, in 3 months, they could give us $20,000 more. You know, we don't know these things. These things happen after the budget process. The budget process is using the information you have at hand, make the best budget you can with what you know. You don't throw things in it that you don't know or may not receive, because then you have a poor budget and you've overestimated your revenues. And so I don't want to do that. But I think it's a good informational that there is a possibility that another $750 can be received, and those funds, if they should be received, would be then allocated to salaries or whatever.
Well, 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago at a meeting, Aaron discussed this and talked about the fact that we were going to get an additional $750 in our forthcoming CVSO grant. So we were aware of it prior to the preparation of the budget, and there was plenty of time to explore. So at that time, it wasn't passed by the legislature, I don't think, but it was signed by the governor at least 2 or 3 months ago. So it's the law. Thank you.
Okay, wherever we stand on that. Thank you, Patrick. We've gone through, this is all supposed to be signed into law. However, the way the government works with the animosity that's going on, who knows what's going to happen. You do have permission to go to the finance committee given to you by this committee, so you can speak on that behalf, assuming that this is what will be happening. Karen?
I need a second vote since the verbiage was changed.
Okay.
We need a second vote.
Okay, there's been alteration to the previous proposal. Don, you stated that before, that as Patrick had said.
That the committee consent to my representing the committee on the issue of the Veteran Service Grant, specifically discuss whether or not, in the event that the Veteran Service Office, the county Veteran Service Office, for all the counties responsible for the money, receives $9,350 rather than $8,500, that somehow the finance committee take that into consideration and reflecting it in the budget as additional revenue.
Discussion.
So,
Well, you need a sec, is that a motion?
before
Yes.
before you finish, would you add this supersedes your last proposal, your last?
I withdrew my last.
He didn't say that. He did.
Okay, so that's been withdrawn, so we have a new one then, and I would withdraw my second of that too then.
Yeah.
So now we have this proposal on the floor. Anybody care to second that one?
I would second it as long as it's informational only. Again, you don't know that you're getting it.
Right.
You can't
This-
put it in a budget.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about things that may or may not be there, so we're anticipating it happening, and in that case, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, no opposition. That was a kind of a delayed aye. So now
I
discussion.
had just
Karen?
discussion before the vote. Just something for you to consider. That's kind of my place as the Veteran Service Officer, since
I'm
he
sorry,
sits.
I can't hear you, Karen. Can you speak up?
That's kind of my position as the County Veteran Service Officer, if Finance and Personnel wants to report and to be informed. So since Don Seep sits on the Finance and Personnel, I would be glad to go to the Finance and Personnel meeting tomorrow to discuss this. That would be my position, so that he wouldn't be a conflict of interest for the Finance and Personnel.
I totally understand. I would.
So I'd be happy to go to the Finance and Personnel and answer any questions that they have about this.
I'd recommend that you participate in that
Absolutely.
portion of the discussion. Any discussion on that, Patrick? I think that's very appropriate. Don? So she'll
That's
be
fine.
there.
Do you need another resolution?
No, it's she's requested. And
You're welcome to come, Karen.
Thank you.
So
It's an issue, it is an issue that is important to me, and I intend to discuss it. You're welcome to join me in that discussion.
and this directly affects what it is that we do here, so I think it's very appropriate. Okay, having had a discussion, all those in favor of this new motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's been passed. So Don can bring this up at his meeting tomorrow. Karen is going to represent her office in this committee at that meeting also to help clarify. Is there anything else that we need to discuss on that?
No, that's fine. Just to say that Senator Markline has been stating publicly through the press that he had a big role in helping get this additional money. So if he's saying that, I think we'll hold him to it.
I think you should be, yes. Okay, we're at number 14 then, public input. Would anybody here care to say something? Marge Freeman, would you come to a mic, please? Oh, thank you.
On behalf of the reference to our Afghanistan veterans returning, on behalf of our local VFW post, Bauer Benel Dalton VFW post 2267, and 3rd District that represents 16 posts, and also at state, we have been doing reach outs. We have been doing online video symposiums and also follow-ups and buddy checks with those veterans returning, not only locally, but 3rd District and the state. Also, the second item tomorrow is National Prisoner of War Missing in Action Remembrance Day. It's always on the 3rd Friday in September every year. It is a national recognized event. So with that said, I just want to pass that information on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Karen?
Just to reiterate, I have additional posters in my office.
Okay.
If you guys would like to pick them up on your way out and so that they can be distributed to your local areas, I have posters for the POWMIA Day tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Sandy, anything from the American Legion? Okay, we've got all the
Mr. Chairman.
service organizations here. Anybody else?
Yes,
Well, I
Mr.
thank
Chairman.
you for your
Yes.
attendance and participation. Don?
Yes, I just one comment. Thank you, Marge, for your report. And I presume that your organization working on the Afghanistan issue would welcome referrals from the Veterans Service Office. Is that correct? Marge?
She's on.
I'm sorry. I had a hard time
She had to
finding
walk
it.
over to the mic.
Yes, that has been happening in reference to the reach outs, and also reminded to the veterans in our VFW meeting Tuesday night. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. Future items, we've discussed a number of them along the way, and Karen's got those down, so we'll include those in our next meeting. Is there anything else we need to discuss? Sherry?
Wasn't there a mention that the office would be moving at some point, your office, Karen, or was I incorrect?
I have asked, but there has been no decision made. It's still completely 100% up in the air. COVID slowed things down. Building costs have slowed things down. It's a evolving. I will update as soon as there's an update to give.
We've got an ongoing problem in this county with building space. It's been approved at our last meeting that the emergency crew downstairs is going to be moving to the REC building. And so, when that takes place, there'll be room available, and there's different offices vying for space. So this is something that's kind of in the works, and we'll have to kind of follow it as it goes. But thank you for the question. So any other future agenda items we need to discuss?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had a very nice visit with Peter and Karen at the Veterans Service Office a day or two ago. And we talked about this issue of the office space and the arrangement there. And they are in the process of making a kind of a sketch or drawing of their existing office and measuring the square footage of the office in total and the space that each is using, and then laying out for us a drawing of the actual space that they would need for reception, secure working space, for confidential interviews. It amounts to perhaps 4 different areas. That's a conceptual notion. So they are, I think, in the process of putting together a drawing of their existing space and then proposed space needed. Is that correct? Is that interpretation of our conversation, Karen?
I have submitted a written proposal, to the county administrator's office explaining why I would need that space downstairs. I can definitely get copies of those and share those with the committee with what I have listed already as to why I would need that space. As the office is now, we can measure it out and just give measurements of the total area versus how much each individual in the office uses for their specific.
The information that the documentation that you brought to the administrator's office, did you bring that to the committee?
It was already approved before this committee took over that I had permission to apply for that.
Mr. Chair, if this is something that we want to put on a future agenda, I think that we recommend that we do that. We're beginning discussion when we're just trying to gather what items we want to have on a future agenda.
I totally agree. Thank you, Clint. So Karen, would you put that on maybe a next month's agenda? There's a lot of loose ends that we need to kind of try to tie up here. And they're continuing, so
Final loose end is,
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate, so what you suggested is good.
Mr. Chairman, a final housekeeping loose end. The Rule 14 seems to have been overlooked, perhaps it's an oversight, but it requires that the minutes be published 14 days after a meeting.
I think generally that's done, isn't it?
Yes, it
It
was.
wasn't done this month.
Well, they had mine within the week after we had done it.
Correct.
Came through the email.
Correct.
I didn't get any minutes until 2 days ago.
Sherry, did you get yours? I mean, right shortly after our last meeting, did you receive, Patrick, did you? Because when I went home and I checked the email, within a week or so, Karen had sent that out initially.
Correct.
And then before this meeting, I asked to resend it, just, because so
I think so.
I get so much email, it gets
You
lost.
probably received the draft.
She sent the draft and then she sent the final, yeah. But a lot of times that ends up in junk mail. Did you end up, of course, that would be on our laptop.
Well, it was not on the website until the day before the meeting.
Oh, when you put these out to us, do you put them on the website as well?
It was added to the end folder a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So when you send it out to us and when it's been tentatively approved.
And that was prior to the 24
Then
hours.
just send it into the other so it's available to
Correct.
anybody.
No, I'm not talking about the 24-hour agenda item. I'm talking about the minutes, which.
That's what I'm speaking of. That's what I'm
Rule
speaking of, yes. So, either, I don't, something happened, but I did see them, so Karen did send them out. Anything further on that, Don? So we'll try and
No,
make
that's
sure that
fine.
that happens, okay?
I had, it's important that we follow the rules.
I totally understand and I approve, I agree. But anyways, Karen, if you'll just, double check, make sure it gets out where we should be fine.
I will.
Okay, thank you. Anything else we need to discuss on that item? Okay, set the future meeting. We did that at our last meeting.
Correct.
That should be October 21st. So we will meet on October 21st, same time, same bat station here. And if there should be a problem, then we'll work with Karen to find another alternative place if we run into problems with the courts. We have our agenda for next time fairly well set. And if there's nothing further, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Sherry
I second.
motions to adjourn and Patrick seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody that came to the meeting. Please come back.